But then the central bank, well, at the end of the the Bankers Committee meeting on Thursday, there was talk that, growth in the non-oil sector will hit about 150 billion naira this year. So in spite of the fact that there's this uncertainty, there's still a ray of sunshine somewhere on the horizon, Mr. Chukwu.
Okay, I will add to what he said, some of the other factors. If you look at the major players in the bond market are local fund managers, which are banks and pension fund administrators, and then foreign portfolio investors. At a point when your currency is expected to devalue further, foreign portfolio investors will not bring their instruments, will not bring their investments, which is what we saw, that the participation of foreign portfolio investors was very low at the last auction. Then for your local fund manager, you have the banks. The banks are going through severe liquidity challenges. You saw interbank rates spiking to 200% within a week. So at a period when the banks are borrowing at 200% to cover their liquidity gap, they are not likely going to have money to buy a federal government bond. So that segment of demand was not there in the market. Then you were left with only PFS. For the PFS, the outlook on yield is that yield will further expand. So if you expect yield to further expand, you don't go into instruments that have long-term tenors. So what they did was to hold back and watch as yields are expanding further, so that we buy at better yield. And that was why you did not meet, the demand was not as high as the supply of 90 billion.
Okay, so now looking at that and looking at the facts that the regulator, the CBN, expects that the non-oil sector will grow as much as 150 billion, by 150 billion naira this year, can you just tie it in?
When you talk of the non-oil sector growth, you have to look at it in a context. The basic thing is that you have to look at which sectors are going to grow. Because it's not enough to give a ballpark figure. Say oil sector, non-oil sector is going to grow by this.
Yeah, because you see, the banks are having liquidity challenges as its own.
Yeah, let's look at those. Which sectors of the non-oil sector are going to grow? The consumer business is going to go down because purchasing power is being weakened by exchange rate devaluation. So, though you have a large population of consumers, but their capacity to buy consumer goods will weaken because the prices are going to go up. The retail trade, wholesale and retail trade is going to suffer because most of the goods that are sold in wholesale and in that segment are imported goods. They are going to land at higher costs and therefore weaken the demand because of purchasing power capacity. Then let's look at the other sectors. The service industry. The service industry are basically driven by the financial institutions or the financial subsector. They are also going through some challenges. Okay, let's now look at the largest segment of the economy, which is the agricultural sector, which accounts for about 27% of the GDP. We're having a crisis in the Northeast. Until the crisis in the Northeast, and the Northeast provide a reasonable, Northeast and Northwest. In fact, the three northern zones, Northeast, Northwest, and North Central, account for more than 80% of food production in Nigeria. Those areas are still subject. There's actually a war going on in the Northeast. A multinational force is facing Boko Haram in the Northeast. You don't expect a lot of agricultural production to continue to grow in that sector. We are seeing the consumer goods sector. Now, if you go to the construction industry, I'm just segmenting the non-oil sector. Go and look at the construction industry. What will drive construction? At a point when the state governments and the federal government are going to struggle to meet their recurrent obligations. We've seen capital budget of the federal government drop to 633 billion. And if oil price does not move up, it may drop further. So the state government, we understand about 22 state governments are finding it difficult to pay salaries. So where are you going to, which segment of the non-oil sector will drive this growth in earnings? I think this year we're going to go through a transition. I do not see any sector that will do extraordinarily well. You may see some bright lights here and there, but I do not see any sector doing extraordinarily well because the economy is interwoven. If you have a devaluation of your currency, you have purchasing power declining, then you're not going to have demand that will drive production. And then you have government that is weakening in terms of government revenue, that is not going to go into this sector productive activities like construction, that act as catalyst for growth in the non-oil sector. So I think it may amount to a lot of optimism to expect a major improvement and major growth, a significant growth in any of the sectors of the Nigerian economy this year. We should remember the budget has not been passed. The budget is a major driver of economic activity in the country. And the budget is not going to be passed until around May because the election is going to be still going on in April. And when the budget is passed, you are now going to have a new set of economic managers, be it under either of the parties. So which will take some time for them to come up with a policy direction. I don't see a lot of economic activities happening this year.
Well, Mr. Larajo, let's quickly get your thoughts before we go and break to catch up.
I just want to add to what he has said, that when you're talking about non-oil sector growing and performing exceedingly well, that we are also aware that there is a direct link between energy consumption and economic growth. And what has happened in the power sector? How is power sector going to drive the expected activities that we bring about this performance? Because the truth is that as at now, we still see that power generation is dwindling as a result of so many activities. I mean, we call it sabotage, call it vandalism of power infrastructure, whatever it is. We know that our need, power need, has not been met. So if this is not done, I do not see how economic activity will be bolstered to achieve this kind of performance we are expecting.
So in our closing words now, yes, it's been a nail-biting week for businesses and operators, the regulators as well, both sides, fiscal, monetary authorities. And everybody has really, really been looking at the Nigerian market. But Friday, a lot of people will be wondering how next week is going to be like. With the pattern that we've seen, with the sentiments investors have displayed, are we going to still see much pressure continue next week? Yes, albeit that we're not expecting that oil prices will dramatically change over the weekend, or we still have like 5 more weeks to go before the elections. But will investors take the words of the CBN governor to heart, not to panic, and also the Minister of Finance, do not panic?
Well, I think what will happen is that, there are two panic factors that have created the panic you saw in the market. One is the political uncertainty, which was heightened as a result of the decision of INEC to postpone the election. I think the announcement that the president's speech at his media interview on Wednesday would begin to calm frayed nerves or concerns. When the president said that he's going to hand over on May 29th, whether if he doesn't win the election, he will hand over to whoever wins the election. I think that's a lot assuring to particularly local investors. Because people are beginning to conjure the issue of there's going to be an interim national government. Jonathan does not plan to hand over. And we also saw the chairman of the party saying that now beginning to praise INEC. Because basically, if the party in power believes that the umpire is biased, then it can be a pointer to citizens that the party in power will not accept the outcome of the election. So, but if the chairman of that party has said that the umpire is not biased, is doing a good job, they believe they can deliver on that, on their mandate, then that gives some level of reassurance. One of the greatest challenges we have beyond the issue of economic uncertainty or policy direction or clarity is the issue of political direction. People were worried, very worried, when the election was postponed. And that worsened the situation we have in the economic space. So if we are beginning to hear from key decision makers in government assuring us that we're going to have a free and fair election, assuring us that whatever be the outcome of that election, there will be a transition. If the president wins, and I believe the president is also making that statement, the opposition party should also make that similar statement to reassure Nigerians, because they want to govern Nigerians. The opposition statement also have a duty to come out and reassure Nigerians whatever outcome of the election is free and fair, they will accept the result. And I think if the two parties, most likely winners of this election, come out to the public and tell us that, there will be some level of calmness.
Mr. Larajo, okay, you want to?
Okay. Then on the economic space, I know central bank is intervening today to meet genuine demands in the interbank market. But such intervention are still sporadic. The basic thing is that when people have confidence that there's not going to be any political upheaval, so they now have to contain one aspect, which is exchange rate volatility and exchange rate uncertainty. So I think the assurance of political stability will help begin to moderate things. But you're still going to see pressure in the forex market.
That's what I was going to actually ask Mr. Olarewaju. We expect to see still continued pressure. The Naira continue to trade as high as 205, 206 at the interbank, as we've seen in the last.
The truth is that pressure continues in the coming week. However, all the effort of the stakeholders to douse the tension will impact, but the truth is that investors continue to be wary of where things are going.
Oh, well. Thank you so much, Mr. Olarewaju, for that and for making it as brief and concise. And of course, I know that a lot of investors are going to keep their eye on the markets and closely follow developments. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program. It's been an interesting conversation. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Chief Executive Officer of Kari Assets Management Limited, and Mr. Muyiwa Olarewaju, Chief Executive Officer, Watershed Capital. Thank you for coming on the program.
Pleasure.
Well, that's today's edition of the program. If you missed it, catch it up on youtube.com/channelsweb/videos. And thank you also for being a part of it. I'll see you again very soon. I'm Harriet Agbinyi. Bye-bye.